Tonight's episode is about not being a perfect teacher. Hello, everybody. Tonight's episode is about not being a perfect teacher. So I'm going to start as very honest. Join me and we can chat about some of the things that make us an imperfect teacher. I'm going to try to be honest about all of my imperfections because you know what? There are just some days where you just don't feel like you've got it all together. And it happens to me probably just as much as it happens to other people. So come on in, say hello. I mean, sometimes behind me, you may see back here that it looks all neat and organized back here on my shelf. Look at that. Look at how neat. Oh, hey, ignore this. That's not there. But around anywhere where you don't see the camera pointed, it's not so hot. It's kind of a mess. So especially if I'm in the middle of working with something, it's definitely not on the perfect side. That is for sure. So my question tonight for you is, what do you worry about? And what are kind of your insecurities when it comes to a teacher? Because I am diving deep tonight into what mine are. So feel free to think about what yours might be and what you do to compensate for them, because I definitely think that that's something that we do all the time. So I might just get started right away. I'm here, I'm live, I'm ready to go. So hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Teaching with Inquiry Live. So tonight I am asking you to trust me when I tell you that I am not a perfect teacher. I am far from a perfect teacher. And sometimes I worry because I come online every week, or I have a blog or a TPT store. The last thing I want is for people to look and compare their everyday reality to generally what I share as my highlight reel. I can't share some of the disappointments that I have because of everyone knows there's confidentiality reasons and all of those other things. I can't always share all of the not so great things that happen in my classroom, the things that make me rethink why I even got into this profession in the first place. All of those thoughts definitely crossed through my mind, and I wanted to make sure that I put that out there so that if you're watching this, you know that you are not alone in coming home at the end of the day and feeling like it's all for nothing and that you just want to throw in the towel. And then there's other days where you feel like you're a rock star. It definitely happens. And again, the whole idea is don't compare your everyday to somebody's highlight reel. And so today I'm just going to kind of open up the doors, and I'm going to try to be as honest as I possibly can about what makes me not such a perfect teacher and why I just have had to learn to be okay with it, because really we're not all perfect, and that's totally okay. So I'm going to take off that pre-show thing there, and it will just be me. So if you've ever gone to my blog or you've thought, why am I here? One of the reasons I started my blog was primarily because I was feeling frustrated and I wanted to look for some ideas. But ultimately, I couldn't necessarily find a voice online that represented me. A lot of the voices that I found online in terms of who was blogging 6 years ago, blogging was pretty huge back then, but a lot of the voices in the teaching blogging world weren't necessarily Canadian like me. And they weren't teaching in a school system like mine, and they weren't even using some of the same teaching pedagogies that we were being asked to use. So I wanted to dig deep and do some of the research and then share what I was learning with others in hopes that perhaps there would be more voices out there. And thankfully, there are quite a few more voices out there, which is great. And I had to justify why I was spending all of this extra time. People would request why they wanted the information from, that they wanted things that I was talking about on my blog, and that led into Teach Pay Teachers. And I needed to also to justify to my husband why I was spending a ridiculous amount of time making all of my worksheets pretty with interesting fonts, clip art, and borders. So all of that is there. That's kind of where it came from, and it's where it is now. And there's a live show, and it goes into a podcast and all of that, primarily just because I feel as though I can continue to use my voice to help make sure that other teachers don't feel as though there's nobody out there speaking their language. So I'm not perfect. And in fact, I definitely have days where I'm thankful that there's a glass of wine and a supportive husband at home that will listen to me whine and complain all night long about all of the things that frustrate me. That's for sure. So I'm going to cover 5 main things that make me an imperfect teacher, and I'm going to be brave and put them out there and fully admit all of those things. So is there something, before I get started, I want you to think, is there something, what is one of the things that makes you an imperfect teacher? And how do you compensate for that? What do you do so that you can maybe get over that or do that? Share that in the comments and let us know what's one of the things that you use to compensate for maybe something that makes you not such a perfect teacher. How do you kind of mask that or get over that? So number 1, full honesty. I can't spell. I'm actually not a great speller at all. And this is one of the things that has made me really self-conscious as a teacher, because I'm always worried that if I write anything down and I spell something wrong, that I'm going to get that big judgment piece where somebody says, oh my God, she's a teacher and she can't spell. And that questioning of my ability to teach simply hinged on the idea that spelling isn't something I'm good at, that in order to be a great teacher, that you also have to be good at spelling and math and science and everything else, that you need to be awesome at all of those things. And frankly, I'm just not. I'm not great at spelling. For whatever reason, it's not a strength of mine. And that is something that I have had to get over, that fear of being judged if I do spell something wrong in my classroom. So I compensate. Some of the things I do is I rewrite all of my anchor charts to make sure that there's spelling mistakes, because chances are if I'm writing, there might be a spelling mistake and there's crossing off. I have my phone with me in class so that if I do come across a word that I am second guessing myself that I can't spell, I look it up, and I model for my students that I am going to look it up, because they need to see I'm not perfect. And I'm honest with them and saying, I am looking it up because I'm not sure. I forget. I'm thinking about it. And that's okay. It's okay to admit that you're not so great at it. With parents and other teachers and other staff, I just rely on technology, and thankfully the invention of spell check has been my absolute lifesaver. Using spell check has helped me because I can then write something and I can have a second set of computer eyes to help me get over that. And it doesn't, and I've had to come to the acceptance over the last 10 years that spelling and being a good teacher don't necessarily mean that they're mutually joined. That you can maybe not such a great speller and you can also be a good teacher. And I have to just own that that's an area that I have to work on. And if being completely honest, it probably doesn't end with spelling. If you ask my friend Sherry, she will tell you that I also really love capital letters, and I'll just randomly put them in places all the time, which I'm working on, bear with me. but I just need help, and I can recognize that I need help. So I get editors to look over all of my stuff. I rely on friends and family to help me edit my things and to work over some of the things before I publish them or make them. I know what my weakness is in this area, and I can compensate for it, and that's okay. Another thing that is a weakness for me as a teacher is I'm forgetful. I forget everything. If sometimes I wish I might be an elephant, but really I am a goldfish many of the time. And this, I think, leads into the idea that why maybe I don't like paper so much. One of my big issues is I don't really like having loose paper, and that's because I think I'm constantly misplacing it. The most used feature on all of my devices is the search feature. So I owe a big thank you to all of those software engineers at Google and every other software engineer that designs search algorithms, because I highly rely on your skill set in order to help keep me organized. And because I'm forgetful, I will often miss things and forget things. So I have to really work on it. I have to write myself notes. I have to ask my students to help me. I have to acknowledge that this is an area that I'm working on. And I find when I acknowledge these weak areas with others, then they're absolutely willing to help me out with them. And that's okay. Number 3 of the things that I'm not so good at as a teacher, details. There's a 2-part to this. It's number 3 and number 4, my issue with details. 1, I am not a detail person. I am an idea person. I am somebody who likes to come up with ideas all the time and think of different ways I can do it. But I don't really like to get caught up in the ideas. So if you think about in the classroom, this generally means that I don't really like to plan field trips because there's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of checking of boxes and going through that nitty gritty, all of the things that you need to do to get them from, I have a great idea, let's go on a field trip, to actually getting kids there to go on a field trip. And I just have to really rely on the fact that I work with some amazing coworkers where this is their strength. Logistics is their strength. If ideas are maybe where I thrive and coming up with ideas and different ways of doing things, I can rely on the strength of my coworkers because logistics is their thing. So they can work on making sure that we can actually go to the field trip, and I can find the field trip and come up with an idea. So relying on the people around you to help compensate for some of those areas where you might not be great. There's nothing to be ashamed of in that sense where you might not be great at something, but somebody else might be great at something you're not so great at. And that's okay. Rely on the strength of others and find the people that match their strengths or your weaknesses, and it really helps to get that ball rolling and make sure that the things you're not so good at in your classroom, maybe there's somebody else that you work with that can help you with that area, because then you're working as a team and you are working well together. On the flip side, I also need all of the details. So this has been a huge barrier for me, and this led to some major problems in high school as a student for myself, because I struggled a lot with math and science, primarily because if I don't have all of the details and I don't have all of the information about a topic, I really struggle. I don't assume things very well. I don't just take things at face value. And I often find when I'm presented with new information that I have to really learn about in a great amount of detail. So there is a benefit to this in the sense that when a new concept comes my way, I have to really know it. And thankfully, in high school with math and science, I had 2 really amazing math teachers that recognized this for me and would teach the regular lesson and then come and sit with me and walk me through step by step to make sure that I understood the entire process, because skipping steps just didn't work for me. I needed to see it from beginning to end. Thankfully, now in math, that helps me when I'm a teacher, because I can see what all of those steps might be. So then I can then recognize where an error might happen. So it does help for me as a teacher, because I can recognize in other students and what they might be needing in terms of working through different problems, that every student might need a little bit different or might see things a little bit differently. And because things didn't come so super easy to me as a student, that gives me a lot of empathy when I'm working with other students. And it also allows me to understand that there's multiple ways to get to the same conclusion, to get to that same answer. And that's okay, because I definitely carried those two teachers with me in my experiences. That helps me to become a better teacher. Now, number 5 is I'm easily distracted. And see, easily distracted. And it's okay. It's okay that I'm easily distracted. Now, sometimes this means that I spend way too much time on things I don't need to spend time on. So for instance, I'm given an organizer from a professional development session. I could simply just use that organizer with my students. Somebody else made and they gave it to me. But no, I remake the whole organizer because it doesn't match the fonts that I've used in my classroom. Not at all a good use of my time, but I get distracted in getting involved in that kind of thing. If you were looking at my Instagram this week, I got distracted with a prep in terms of reorganizing my furniture in my classroom. I maybe didn't need to use my prep for that, but I did. I do actually like the way my furniture is now, so bonus. But there was a high chance that I would have moved my furniture, not liked it, and then rearranged it back to its original position, because I get distracted thinking, oh, something's not working, so then I need to do this and change things instead of just really focusing on what I need to do. And I spend way too much time on things that I don't need to be doing because they're not going to give me a high bang for my buck. In all reality, my students probably don't care that all of my worksheets have the same font on them. It's probably not a big deal to them. But I get distracted, and that's what I put together, and it's not necessary. So I need to maybe lower those expectations and maybe focus my efforts on the things that do matter and kind of let go of some of the things that don't. But I'm not sure if that's going to change anytime soon. I wish it would, but it probably won't. So those are my 5 things that make me an imperfect teacher. And over the last 10 years of teaching, I have just had to learn to accept that I'm not perfect. And it's okay that I'm not perfect. It's okay that things don't work out all the time. I fail a lot in my classroom. I come up with an idea, I try it out, it doesn't work. I don't necessarily share all the failures that I have in my classroom. Maybe I should share a few more. I don't share all my failures. I do share my successes. I'm not going to put something out there that doesn't work for me. But chances are, if something has worked for me and I'm sharing it with you, it probably means that there's 10 or 15 things that I have tried that didn't work out so well and weren't so hot. And I definitely still have those days which are tougher than others, where I feel like a complete failure as a teacher because nothing worked out the way I needed it to. But thankfully, each day is a new day, and days like today happen where Friday was a rough day. It was rough for everybody. But today I walked in and all of my students opened their independent reading books in first period, and every single one of them was reading and on task before the announcements even came on. And just that moment there, I was like, okay, I can do this. It's not always going to be like Friday. And that's okay. You have those moments where it makes it all worth it and you feel like you're on track. And then you have those moments where everything falls off the rails and nothing works. And you pull out a math textbook and you give the questions from the textbook because that's all the energy that you have for the day. And that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect 100% of the time. So I hope that that makes you think a little bit tonight about giving yourself a break and understanding that it's okay if you're not perfect, and it's okay if you have bad days, and it's okay if things don't work out. The fact you show up and you try and that you want to be a good teacher is probably the number one thing. So thank you for joining me tonight. If you want to read the blog post that goes along with tonight's talk, you can find that on www.madlylearn.com. And for all of the show notes that correspond with this video, including the podcast replay, YouTube show, and all other links associated with this, including the free resource library of past upgrades, content upgrades that you get, you can find that at www.teachingwithinquiry.com. And I will catch you again next week. Have a lovely week, and I'll see you later. Bye for now.